AI is coming, but perhaps to coach your game. Getting robotic sword recommendations will leave you not the same. What's a dad to do when he's sick with the flu? Grab a Steam Deck to cure you with a great game or two. Welcome to New Dad Gaming.
The adult beverages are poured. The kids are asleep. Welcome to New Dad Gaming. It's a show about fatherhood, gaming, and new fathers figuring out their gaming lives.
My name is Trevor, and I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
And I'm Jeff. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Each week we try to show that just because you became a dad
Does not mean it's game over.
and we are back in the saddle. There were sicknesses, there were vacations, there were just being tired. but between it all, thanks everybody who reached out. Always adore seeing the messages and the questions and the stories from all the gaming dads. Really do appreciate that. If you would yourself like to do so, find us at newdadgaming.com or at newdadgaming. Always like to hear that stuff. But lots to kind of get through this week. A couple rumors, a couple releases. And I wanted to dive right in there because there's been a really fascinating journey that I've been on in my current Elden Ring playthrough.
Okay.
So yeah, I had once attempted Elden Ring, and and it had always like sat with me. It was something I wanted to get back into. And as I was finishing up Spider-Man, you know, as I play the latest and greatest hits from 2020,
Right. Retro games at this point, right?
yeah, right. But as I start, but it sat on me. It's like I really enjoyed it. Although at the time I had used a previous sponsor of the show with a Plitch, which actually it's a game cheat. Now that doesn't let you on PvP. They turn it off. You can't do it. But for the actual playthrough, you can just give yourself 1,000,000 runes, whatever else you need, right? So it made it a bit easier. I remember one-shotting a boss, and it didn't feel great.
It didn't feel great. No, you're like, why am I here?
Because I'd already tried a little bit myself and was getting completely just destroyed, and then I came in and just poked him once. I'm like, oh, that's not a this feels a bit hollow. So I'm back at it though. I cannot describe. This is funny. So this is a continuing segment where Trevor recommends obvious dumb games that the whole world already knows about and adored.
Right.
But I would like to say that perhaps if a gaming dad did not jump on previously, had, you know, kind of admired it from afar, like I would recommend giving it a try, because it's the sense of adventure is what I really can't get over. And I don't know if you can recall your first time stepping into this world, Jeff. Maybe you could attest to it, but this is the feeling of like the Super Nintendo or even like PlayStation, like with Final Fantasy VII, when the RPG just opens up into the open map and you are presented with just a plethora of choices. Like, how do you want to adventure today? Like, I have not felt this degree of kind of excitement in that way since with this game. That the whole time I'm stomping around this world. Do you recall having a similar reaction when you started to step out into the world?
Yeah, actually, I did, and I didn't think I was going to. You see trailers and previews, and you're like, yeah, it's Elden Ring. I'll step into it. Yeah, I'll go. But at the very start of the game, where you come out of the cave and Limgrave opens up and the music kicks in, it's just like this total moment, right? And then this game is so special that it does it multiple times, so you don't expect it to do it again, but all of a sudden, like, you turn a corner and there's another whole world there for you, and it's presented in this like massive way, right? Like, here's this grandeur that you get to explore, and I found this game just constantly doing it over and over again. Very difficult, but if you get the mods or cheats happening to help you, you can experience the art. I think I've talked about that before, right? Like, there's an art to this game that I think everyone should give it a shot, right? So
yeah, I think it's just the real challenge will be, you tend to, especially with RPGs, especially with like hack and slashers, you're used to just like, okay, I'll kill this bird 20,000 times, I'll just be overpowered,
Right.
and I'll just like breeze through. Or you're just really good at games.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen here. Like this game, like just constantly excels at like just beating you into a pulp, right? But eventually, like so that I could see it at a quick bounce off, right? I don't think that really even happened with me. I would encourage folks to give it another look, because if you get past that, I don't know that I've seen a game that, brings that sense of wonder and adventure as this title. So, but you do have to get it now. The second part that happens, though, is the depth, right? This game is silly deep, unnecessarily, like Mariana's Trench deep of lore, of lore mechanics, and that it doesn't explain a single goddamn thing to you, right?
No.
So now, with an abundance of time, where you can just flounder around and kind of do it, Bob's your uncle, good for you. But for gaming dads, we have less time. So here's something that I've stumbled upon that I cannot believe how well this works, and it's going to be something that I'm going to revisit for most games. Now,
Okay.
So quick question, like, are you using AI at all? Like any of the chat bots? Are you paying for any AI services?
I personally am not. No.
Okay. So I do for my work, like it uses me to build things. I do some marketing text with it. So like I'm already much within the world, and I have like paid subscriptions to it. I think you could do this with free versions too. But if you are familiar with any of the chatbots, so be it like Google Gemini, LLMs, from ChatGPT, for instance, any of those, and especially with the voice mode, what I've discovered is that it becomes the ultimate game coach. Because what these models are able to do is go out to the internet and then infer your intention from your speaking with it, and then produce a bunch of like pointed guides based on exactly what it is. So I want to give a couple examples. Now this is like a live demo, which classically with text doesn't work. So I'm using ChatGPT, and it's with I've set up an instance of like, okay, you're an Elden Ring game expert with a focus on guiding new and untalented players. That was one of my favorite parts. I described myself.
New and untalented. Okay.
Yeah, so I gave it a guideline. It's like, okay, these are the guardrails you operate within. You're an Elden Ring game expert with a focus on guiding new and untalented players towards simple strategies and simple to obtain weapons and armor that help them beat the game and help them have a fun time. You'll helpfully and in simple language explain mechanics, tips, walkthroughs of areas, and upgrade guides that are focused on helping the player get the maximum enjoyment with the least effort and frustration. And then I go through and I list a couple websites that have like just complete big full guides. So it's like, okay, like reference. So don't just make it up. Like go to these sites to figure out what I need. So let me try one chat, and I'll see if like it captures it. So I'm using chat.
That is quite the prompt, though. Like very detailed, very down to the last detail.
All right, let's see if I can get a good response. Okay, I'm choosing between two weapons: the Morning Star and the Lord Sorn's Greatsword. Which weapon will better serve me in the game? Also, depending on which weapon you choose, what stats should I focus on leveling?
It really depends on your playstyle. The Morning Star is great for a strength build and is especially effective against enemies vulnerable to blunt damage. The Lord Thorn's Greatsword, on the other hand, has a higher damage output and reach, making it ideal for a more aggressive, melee-focused build. If you go with the Morning Star, you'll want to prioritize strength and endurance to maximize its potential and sustain in close combat. For the Lord Thorn's Greatsword, focus on leveling both strength and dexterity to wield it effectively and make the most of its versatility. So, which playstyle are you leaning towards?
I'm really unsure, but I'm very bad at this game. Which of the two is more optimal for a new player?
The Morning Star is likely the better choice for a new player. It's easier to use and quite forgiving, especially with its blunt damage, which is effective against many enemies. Focus on leveling your strength and endurance to get the most out of it. You'll find it easier.
Okay, so there goes. Right?
Okay, yeah. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of things where you're pumping stats and you're like, well, I don't know. Like,
because the other thing I can do, depending on the model, and again, it depends if you're paying for it already. Like there'll be some like features that aren't there, but at some points, like I've turned on the camera, and I showed it like my current stats and my leveling, and I asked it like, hey, based on like the best knowledge from like the community, like what should I pour my next like 2 levels into? And then it like read the screen. It's like, well, I see that your like vigor is a little bit low. That suggests like you bump that up a little bit because of XYZ. Or it's like, and then you can kind of push. Then you can have like a conversation with. It's like, for instance, I don't want to have to punch people or like fight them. I want to stand back and just throw magic. What should I do instead? Right. And they're like, oh, okay, well in that case, bink, 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 bink. So this it's not novel information. It's just information from the web that people have put into forums and put on these like big guide sites, right? But it's just, as opposed to reading it, interpreting it, trying to like put together 6 or 7 articles to figure it out, you're just having a conversation. Like imagine whatever friend you have that's beaten it 20 times and is like an expert in it.
Yeah.
Imagine just having them on your shoulder and you could just ask them perpetually questions without any chiding or making fun of you. like how might I best approach this? And I can't describe how much like burden it took off my shoulders, because like I think for some people, like one of the cool things about Elden Ring is you can do multiple playthroughs and like respec and try again.
Yeah.
But like I don't have time. Like I don't want to go through it like 4 more times and make mistakes, right? I kind of want to have like just a straightforward path. And this has just helped me to know it's like, okay, this is based on what you just said, like just do this or that. You'll find it easiest.
Yeah, like I think it's again almost like the essence of what the Souls games were trying to do anyway, with like the silhouettes of other players and messages, right? Like it was helping you along in a way, and this is kind of building upon that. In it's more detailed, obviously, and way more advanced. But I'm wondering if they will look at it as kind of an evolution into like, oh, maybe we do need to put those kind of messages and that kind of detail with other players into the weapons and point system and where you drop all those stats, because that would be kind of neat. To relate it to a game I'm playing with Metaphor, there's an in-game thing where you press a button and it shows you what everybody has done at that moment in time and what kind of bosses they're going up against with the party makeup. So like what characters they have, what class they are, and what level they are, and you can kind of feed off that information to give you an idea. So it's kind of a cool, I don't know, again, a guide, especially for dad gaming. It hadn't occurred to me, but this playthrough has been great, and it's something I think I'll use in the rest of the games. Like it's been a guide for how to get through certain areas. Like the Great Runes greatly confused me. Like I didn't know what the heck. Like because it's when I did beat Godric, which by the way, like I'm not cheating this run through. I beat Godric. I was pretty excited about that. Nice, celebrate that. That's good.
I was pretty jazzed up because that's the one. That was the one hit one, and it did not feel good at all. I hated how it felt when I beat him with one hit. It's like, oh, this sucks. So I did it on my own, very happy with it. But then it gave me this great rune. It's like, hey, here you go.
Right.
And it's like, but it's not active. I was like,
right.
What?
What do I do with that? Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Like, there's no in-game lore. Like, I'm sure it's some textbook in some hidden mansion room somewhere. Like, might have described it, but I was lost. Instead, I could just ask a question. It's like, oh, you just have to go here, here, and here. So it is something, but I'm going to be using this, I think, a lot in my gaming, because just having this like voice version of just asking dumb questions and having the entirety of the internet like come down to it, I think is like super interesting. I am curious your take on AI in games, because it would seem to me that this is a bit of a natural evolution within gaming, and especially if you think about Microsoft. So Microsoft has the thing I just used was ChatGPT, especially with like advanced with voiceover.
Yeah.
Microsoft has a very large investment into OpenAI, right?
Right.
And they also have their own with Copilot. So you would think it's not that many jumps or leaps to just have it on the system, which would then prompt Sony and like Steam and all the others. Does that worry you in a sense? Does that kind of take away the community aspect of people going on forums and helping? Is it kind of sad that computers would take over what used to be chats? But my one, and I'll remind you that most advice around Elden Ring is get good.
Yeah, like that's not terribly helpful. Yeah, I get it. I think there's a place for both. I think it will be a balance. I think people will gravitate towards one or the other depending on their capacity, right? So if you don't have time to search for forums, or if you don't have like one of my kids playing next to you and saying, Dad, go get that weapon because of this and this. Like, I think there's a place for AI in it, as long as it doesn't take away from obviously the art, the voice, the work, all that stuff where it's like the development of it. But like, I just played through Gran Turismo 7, and Sony has Sophie, which is an AI system that has taken all the races from all the players, because they get all that data, and trains its own AI. So in like racing games, that makes sense, because otherwise they just program something and they just kind of put in little errors to make it more human. Now they have actual data to like train a real kind of bot, as close as you can get to a human, to race you.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I could see that kind of develop out of it, even when you go into those games where you have bots for the first couple rounds and you can kind of tell. Now they could be like, well...
We'll find some of the worst players.
Yeah.
We'll bring them. It's like, you're about this person's level. We'll have them go.
Yeah.
And we're going to like level you up. Wasn't there... And on one of the next-gen systems, they were hyping, and perhaps it never came to fruition, a system of, hey, I'm at this point, like, what do I do now? And then you could like bring out a menu and there's like a video guide for it. Am I misremembering that? Or is that just like fodder for a demo that never came out?
No, well, and Sony did have that for a while through PS Plus. Like, you could just, like, a side window would open and it would give you tips. But it was like, they did it. So like the developer would have to put in those kind of chapter bookmarks, and then it would show a video, it would show all this stuff, and then even it would give you how to get that trophy, right? Like, oh, you want tips for how to get that trophy? Here's what you do. So that kind of, I don't know, it's developer on the developer side to implement. I don't think it's like a requirement, but I never really used it. And it wouldn't be as detailed as like, pick up this weapon, right? Like,
yeah, so you could see with there where if you were able to, because that relies on the developers putting in extra time, or Sony, like, you know, out of their goodness of their heart, committing resources to do so. Yeah. Instead, if it was just like, okay, we'll take the greatest of all the knowledge base of how to like beat this game and then allow you to interact with it. Like, I could see it being like built in to help gaming in that sense.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up the Souls games, right? Because that's kind of where, not where it started, but like that was the whole theme of the games, right? Players coming into those games and dropping hints in the world to help you out, though they're kind of cryptic, or sometimes
lies.
Or lies. I was about to say like jump here and it's off a cliff and you die. Like, thanks, buddy. But there was a rating system introduced after that, right? So yeah, they try. It's just.
I read those a lot. Like, those I really do appreciate, and honestly, for the most part, they honestly seem to be helpful.
Which sometimes the helpful ones are the developer ones, because if you go offline, they're still there, but they're the developer ones. So they're trying to be cryptic, but they still kind of help you out. Yeah,
it's like we found like a good 80% of people were just jumping off this cliff to their death. Right? Let's drop a little developer hint on this one.
Please don't jump off the cliff.
So, anyways, I recommend gaming. Depends on your play style, but for somebody like me who just, I don't want to say anxiety, that's overstating it, but just, it bothers me about really deep mechanic games that I don't have time to research into, and I would just like to get, not so much an optimum build, but just something that's going to help me like with a better playthrough. Being able to interact with an AI to assist with that has been just a light shed moment. It's been fantastic. So I really encourage gaming dads out there who have a similar like playstyle to me to give it a shot, because it's just interesting to see where we may go. And if anybody has like thoughts or questions or their own experiences with AI, reach out to us at New Dad Gaming or newdadgaming.com. Now where would we go to from here? I did want to talk about a bit more on the parenting side of things, where you had we've gone through many, like we started with infants when we started the show, and like we've slowly come up, like we had toddlers, and then all of a sudden we have, like in your case, like teenagers, yeah. So, like it was interesting to me, the transition that you started to face as far as opposed to being on top of them for every single waking moment, to relinquishing some control because you don't necessarily need to dictate their life and like control it. So like I just wanted to, like, some of the story that you'd relate to me, I was like really curious to get out to the audience around what it's been like to start to transition to teenagers.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I didn't think I'd be one of these parents where there's like a transition from, holding all the control with your kids and then letting go. I thought that like, oh, that seems natural. It seems like an evolution. But I kind of had a self-reflection moment when my teenager was going for a sleepover, and even to a friend's house that I have never met the friend. I have never met the parents of the friend. And it was more about, at this stage, instead of making the effort to go there, meet the parents in person, almost have a coffee or even like your own like pre-play date with them, and then set up any other time with them. Like, okay, they're cool. You can have my kid now. Right?
You have earned my trust for
by all means.
For my kid.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when you have a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old, right? You're away from driving. They have their own phone. They can advocate for themselves. They understand the world around them. We still check in with them, but it was more about letting that go a bit and guiding them. Like, oh, okay, these are the questions you ask. These are the things you look out for. If there's any issues at all, no matter what, we have like a code phrase that they can use with us if they're in the room with the person, stuff like that, where they can call us, contact us, and everything. But it was kind of letting go a little bit. Like, they were going to stay at this friend's house. Obviously, I know the name and address of the people there, but I had never met the parents. And it was just like a weird moment for me. Like, oh, like maybe I should, right? Like maybe that is something that I need to do. But then I remember even from my childhood, not saying it's the same, but like I don't even think my parents met any of my high school friends. And this is a new high school friend that my teenager has. So I gave him kind of that leeway to see what's happening, see what's going on. And then I appeared to pick him up and kind of met the parents for a couple minutes there, just to kind of like confirm, right? So I wasn't doing like the preemptive. I was just confirming even my own suspicions, because I'm like, I don't know, like I felt weird about it. It was almost like, again, that learning curve for me. So doing that a little bit backwards was different, and I didn't think I would feel that way, but I totally did. So just as a warning for anyone stepping into that phase, it's more about guiding them than controlling them. I think at this point is where we're kind of taking it. Yeah, if that sounds right.
I think it's reassuring that it is hitting different than you would expect. I would almost say it's just like, oh, yeah, they head out. It's great. I don't think about them at all. It's fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think I find those type of inclinations to be reassuring, in the sense that like you care for them, you want to make sure everything is fine, but you are growing as a parent as your child is growing too. So I tend to take those sort of reflective, surprising moments as reassuring, in the sense that like, oh, like I'm not disconnected from this journey as it's going. Instead, like, so I need to also be growing into this like changing role as like your parenthood like shifts, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely something that allows you to work on communication with your kid as well, right? Because I think when you're there all the time, the communication is kind of almost understood or implied, or it's a little bit easier. And now it's just like, this is how my teenager has to communicate information to me, right? So we still have to work on that. So some texts and phone calls are like one sentence, one word answers. I'm like, no, I need more information. So even working on that aspect of things, on how to communicate with us, and when and what kind of time frame. Like, we're not here at your beck and call either, right? You chose to do something, we need to plan it out, right? So thinking about all those things, and so they can kind of grow into the person that is independent but still has to think about the others. Because before, you would set up the play date, so you've already planned for it, right? This is him doing that, but he still needs to consider, oh, is the family doing anything? Is the younger one going to swim lessons where my parents can't drive me? Like that stuff, right? So that's what we're working on now. There are some hiccups, but that's where those conversations happen, I think. So
literal growing pains. That's
right? Yeah.
No, that's fast. Like I said, I benefit greatly from this show because you're in the trenches. You're like you're the trailblazer, and I'm just following in your footsteps. So it's like, so what else worked, Jeff?
Right.
Don't do that. What were some mistakes you made?
Yeah, exactly.
So I find it like really fascinating. Yeah, like the thought of having like a 14-year-old that just it's like, all right, bye, I'll be back for dinner, or like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. It's like, huh. It's like I want to foster strength and resiliency and independence, but also like I can't let you die. Like I need to like keep you on the straight and narrow. So this like the pull and tug between the desires you have for your offspring.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like you're out here like flying blind, and you're like, okay, you need to check in, and then you don't want to be overbearing either. You don't want to be like check in every hour. You're like, no, just check in like before you go to sleep, and when you wake up, like usually they wake up at like noon, so I'm like, you can't do that at a friend's house. So,
or can you?
I don't know. They stayed up pretty late. We had guesses. We made bets on when. Remember your not first sleepover, but like high school sleepover? I'm like, I don't think I slept. I think I played Metal Gear Solid 2.
I remember it's like, all right, so we had rented Halo. I don't know if it's Halo or Halo 2.
Right.
We had rented it. And I mean, like, rent it. It was like, so back in the day, like, it didn't even have a Blockbuster, but just local game store. And we went upstairs and we made the grossest concoction of instant coffee.
Oh
like,
my God.
I'm talking like a third crystals and like 2/3 water, and then just like tons of sugar. It's like, all right, we got to stay up. We're going to beat this game. It's like, we're just going to stay up all night and beat this game. So we cranked all this like instant coffee to try to get it. And I think we made it to like 4 a.m. and it just died. Just like, it's like, all right, that's not happening. We can't beat this. I don't know, like 16-hour campaign in one night. So let's wrap it up.
No, but you thought you could, and that was the important point.
Right? Some lessons were made that night.
Yeah. No, I felt the same with like Metal Gear Solid 2. I'm like, no, we're gonna complete this because we rented it, so time is money. We need to go through this. Never did.
Not even close. Not even close.
No.
So, hey, gaming dads, anyone else out there feeling these things, going through these growing pains, reach out to us at New Dad Gaming, newdadgaming.com. Now, we don't tend to dive into gaming news or rumors, but this one in particular really struck at us. And in some ways, too, because like the challenge with reporting on news is it's less timeless, right?
Yeah.
Like when your kid all of a sudden doesn't need to be babysat and they go out and they go into the world, when you finally get the kid to sleep through the night and you can play the first game for the first time, like that's a timeless gaming dad story, and that's kind of like what we prefer to focus on. So, news items of the day, it's sort of like, well, that's January, like it's a week in January of 2025.
Right.
That's all. But this one, I think, speaks to a moment in gaming that might be a bit of a watershed moment. So I want us to talk about it a bit. So it's all fairly speculative, but fairly massive if it comes to fruition. So specifically, Microsoft and Xbox had released some upcoming, I think, UI updates.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, like here's what we might be doing for the UI, and here's some like big, exciting stuff. And lo and behold, and I'm currently just looking at one of the stories from The Verge, but one of the tabs that eagle-eyed viewers noticed was that it's like, hey, here's all your games. You have recent ones installed, Game Pass, and then there's a Steam tab.
Mm-hmm.
So the suggestion being that perhaps the games that you own on Steam might become playable on your Xbox hardware. And that is a fascinating choice. Like, when you had heard this, like, what was your reaction to it?
It was, well, one, gaming everywhere. Again, more options for dad.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But I also, it kind of makes sense, right? I think this is where they've been going. They're trying to make Xbox as more of a platform, or, an overarching thing where you can go into it and play any of your games on any kind of system or console or TV or whatever. But when I saw Steam, I'm like, whoa, that's a big name to put out there. And like, what's that relationship? Because Microsoft has its own like games store and like launcher that you have to kind of go through. So how are they connecting Steam into it? And, you know, how is this all going to work? But it was exciting because, again, like, well, that can break down a lot of barriers and, again, have more gaming everywhere, right? So I think it's an interesting step, and especially since they pulled it. So it's like, it's not like an error.
Yeah, I do love it. Like, the challenge with Steam, like, PC gaming. I have a PC, like, I have a fairly robust PC. I enjoy it quite a bit, but, I mean, it is at least $1,000. The top end of it is $5,000, and it's finicky because on Thursday your PC might update and you get a weird audio kernel that gets updated, and the entire thing goes for fritz. And now you have to sit here and like configure it. It's gotten better. It's certainly better than it was like 5 years, 10 years ago, whatever. Right? Like it is a bit more seamless. However, it still is. I have a date coming up in future where a buddy of mine will come to my house and he's going to help me set up my PC because I've never quite done it. And he's a master at it, and he's been able to, for other friends of ours, increase performance by like 20 to 50%. Because there's settings, like secret little settings that if you tweak properly to work correctly with your hardware, you can increase the performance. So I could be running a very suboptimal performance machine right now, and I have no clue, right? Yeah. I'm just sitting here like, I'm dying in Elden Ring. So the benefits of consoles are like some of the quality of life things, like quick start, quick resume. Like that works unbelievably on the Xbox. I assume also on the PlayStation. The speed at which games install, the complete no hassle part of it. It's like, oh, they're a game. Click game. Oh, gameplay now. Yay. And it's just completely done, right? Yeah. The joy of sitting on a couch and it's on the TV and now you're just gaming, right? The thought that you could use, and an Xbox Series X is $500, roughly. And that's Canadian, so imagine if it's US, it's like $200. PS5, like again, like $500, $600.
Yeah.
For like top tier visuals, right? With no fuss, no muss. The thought that Xbox, and I half assume like that might make its way to PlayStation, I'm not so sure, but at least with Xbox, the thought that you can drop that $500 and then have access to some decent portion of games you might own on Steam, or be able to participate in silly Steam sales like during the summer, and then have those show up on your console, on your TV, like that is in my opinion, like a fantastic value proposition for like gaming dads and just gamers in general. Would be my synopsis. Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think they will reposition themselves as like, hey, you don't want the fussing around with gaming PCs? Well, come on over here. It's still going to be kind of like a PC. You get your console experience, but also you can get like the hybrid version of some PC games, or I don't know how they're going to work it. Maybe it's all PC games, or does it stream? I don't know. I could see, again, a lot of opportunity there. And again, it helps gamers out for choice. Like if you just want the all-in-one box, pop it open, and it's always up to date, mostly, and you don't have to fine-tune stuff, great, go with this, right? They even have, options for, early access and modding and stuff is more open on Xbox than it is on like PlayStation or Nintendo, right? So yeah, it could be a sell for them for sure. See where it goes.
And you think about like you have the Quest headset, right? I have a Quest headset, and I thought with like you can stream Steam to it, you can stream Xbox Game Stream to it.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
And you have your phone. Like it starts to become, as opposed to trying to lock you into little fiefdoms from particular companies around like, okay, well, this is your PlayStation boy, congratulations. Like this, these are your bounds that you are allowed to play within. Yeah. Instead, it's like, where are you right now? Cool. Have some games. Go for it. Bob's your uncle. You're in VR, like mountaintop. Cool. Like play some Diablo. It's gonna be great. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's that the continual breaking down of barriers to just like present game. The whole point of this is to get games into your hands and play, and it's just this removal of that artificial like fiefdoms, as I'd mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. And again, get in now while younger generations are growing up, and they're starting to get into those walled gardens, right? So if you kind of open that up now, maybe you capture that audience in part of this gaming structure, right, that you're building. So
yeah, like the thought for them, like the kids, as far just understand that it's not about, you know, getting your tattooed on your arm about which system like you like to have it, like joining some sort of team. Instead it's just like, no, like are you a PlayStation or Xbox fanboy? Like, no, I like games. I play games with my friends and with my parents, and like it's this fun thing. It's like much better.
It's the friends and the co-op play, and like if I have to buy like several consoles, do you know what I mean? Like if I could play cross-platform and stuff, figure that out. That'd be great. That's what the gaming dad utopia is just cross-platform everything, no matter what it is, please.
100%. Yeah. So hey, I'm rooting for it. I don't know if it was like I don't know if it's a legitimate mistake. I don't know if it was like a trial balloon, as far as like, hey, let's put this out and see how people react, and if they just completely like lose it. And I'm not talking usually the internet does, but I mean like the reasonable version of the internet.
Yeah, I know we're both designers though, but could you ever be tasked with like, hey, we have this demo UI, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna grab a Steam tab and put it, like, there's no way. There's no way.
It was all the designer's fault. It's fantastic. It's like I need one more tab.
Yeah, I need to balance it out.
Let's just put this here, see what happens. What's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst? No one's gonna see it.
The gaming world explodes. Anyways, hey, really love to hear from anybody. Gaming dads, like, what's your thought on this? Do you prefer to keep the console wars active, thinking competition spurs innovation, or would you prefer to see kumbaya, every game everywhere, and are we marching towards a better world? We'd love to hear from you at New Dad Gaming, newdadgaming.com. And with that, we'll wrap it up there for the week, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. As I just mentioned, our handles at New Dad Gaming, newdadgaming.com. Would love to hear from you. Any thoughts on the show, any future topics you'd like us to discuss about, any stories you're going through. Always love hearing from you, fellow dads. One of the best parts of the show, for sure. If you did like the show, you can find us on all the major podcasting networks, Google, Caster, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Search for New Dad Gaming. What really does help out the show, if you can subscribe and leave a rating or a comment, really helps boost the signal, let other gaming dads know that, hey, we're cool, we're great. Like, just come on by. You can totally leave your kids around, like they can have a play date.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great time. But everybody, thank you once again for listening. Until next week, this is New Dad Gaming. My name is Trevor. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
And I'm Jeff. I have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old. And look for that New Dad Gaming Steam tab there. Maybe
there
that's...
Oh my goodness, that's like New Dad Gaming, choice New Dad Gaming.
Right, there you go.
And mostly it's just like games from like 5 years ago that we finally got around to play. It's like, wow, this is great.
Now playing Spider-Man. Oh, okay, all right.
Spider-Man 2 from the PlayStation.
Yeah. Halo 2. Yeah, we're going back.
We're going back, everybody. Oh, all right, everyone. Thanks again. Remember, just because you became a dad
does not mean it's game over.